to the Week 9 PFF live pregame show. We are coming to you, as I said, live from Pro Football Focus Total Landscaping here in the great city of Cincinnati, a wonderful city, a beautiful city, one of the best, some have said the best city in the entire United States, and that's why we're here today. It's going to be a great week. We've got some really good games, got a ton of props. I was rolling last week. I'm rolling again this week. Eric, Sam, Ian Hartitz is coming to us live from Columbus, Ohio, the second greatest city in our beautiful nation. And we're going to get rolling. We're going to go through every single game. We've got some fantasy DFS as well. So with that being said, let's start with Texans and the Jaguars. The Jaguars are 31st ranked team facing the number 24 ranked Texans. Spread here 6.5. Jaguars are underdogs, total 48. Difference between these two teams about 4.8 points according to our power ranking. Some weather, 80 degrees, chance of rain, 18.5-ish mile per hour winds, no Gardner Minshew. Eric, I'll start with you.
Look, Jake Luton was actually a pretty good prospect relative to Gardner Minshew in the sixth round last year.
Stop it.
We obviously know what Gardner Minshew's capable of. We're not quite sure about Luton. Houston, one of the biggest stories of the season that no one's paying attention to because Houston's 1-6 is that Deshaun Watson has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he has a pretty good game today.
And he's been getting better. I mean, I was writing this idea before the season that with no Nuke Hopkins, Deshaun Watson could actually become a better quarterback fundamentally, overall, force him to actually play more honestly rather than just when in doubt, heave it in the direction of Nuke. It's actually kind of starting to happen. The last few weeks, he's definitely been better than he was at the start of the season. Now, PFF's number 5 graded quarterback, 86.3 overall. That's a few grading points up on anything he's done over a single season before. Watson's actually in business.
It's hilarious to me how win-loss record dictates so much of whether a quarterback is playing well. I remember his rookie season. It was like they won a couple of games. He was throwing a lot of touchdown passes. Like, oh, this guy's great. He actually didn't play as well as those stats would indicate. This year, he's playing really well, but the rest of his team is an absolute disaster here. You guys, however, despite your passion, have decided to pass on both these games. I will take the Houston Texans with Will Fuller back in tow after not being traded to the Packers, -6.5. All right, Ian, I don't know if Deshaun Watson has gotten his due here, but where does he fall in your quarterback rankings for this week?
He's number 4. I mean, I can echo everything that, Sam's saying about him really playing almost better than ever without Hopkins in the fold. Obviously, any offense in the entire league would prefer to have DeAndre Hopkins, but I think it's a similar effect to, what we saw with the Panthers when Christian McCaffrey was out. Like, when you don't force the overwhelming amount of your passing game through one player, it just makes it harder to defend, and we've seen that. Watson is averaging more fantasy points per game this year than he did in 2019 or 2018. Continue to treat him as a top 5 quarterback that he's pretty much been, except for, just some hellacious early season matchups. So, love Watson. Other side of the ball, don't sleep on Laviska Shenault, guys. We talk about maybe these post-bye rookie bumps, and with Jake Luton, we don't know what we're getting there, but it seems like looking at some of the advanced stats, this could be more of a check-down heavy quarterback. Laviska, I think, is going to be that guy in the underneath areas of the field, a little bit more than DJ Chark. And I don't know, they're saying this offense could look just brand new and stuff. Why not take the guy that used to play Wildcat quarterback in college that can line up all over the field and get him a little more involved in the game plan? So yeah, I get it. We all love Watson. We all love the Texans offense, but don't sleep on a potential Laviska Shenault breakout in this one.
And James Robinson is another guy that actually has some real skill back there. You can leverage him, especially with a quarterback that may not be very good. Where do you have him this week?
Yeah, James Robinson, we just need to continue going back to well as a true top 10 option in Fantasyland. Like, I understand we'd probably want 10 real-life backs ahead of him if we were just building a team with the best overall talent, but we cannot find more than really 1 or 2 running backs in the entire league that have a higher workload than this guy right now. So they've been, comfortable, even having Chris Thompson healthy earlier in the year. It hasn't even mattered in games they get down behind. They're comfortable keeping James Robinson out there in pass protection, in negative game scripts, and because of that, he really is, independent of a poor game script. So with Jake Luton being there, he has a chance to tank the entire offense, except for James Robinson, I think, because his workload truly just is that much higher relative to the position. Keep going back to Welton as a true top 10 back.
Ian, it's nice to have at least one person on the bandwagon with me with the Stones to make a pick in our opening game. You taking Houston as well. I have a couple of props that I love here. Deshaun Watson, over 2.5 passing touchdowns, plus 160. I don't quite understand why that's such a high plus number. Deshaun Watson, as Sam mentioned, playing really, really well. He has Will Fuller still. And then speaking of Will Fuller, could have a huge game, but 4.5 receptions, minus 120. I'm going under. He still catches 3 touchdowns, 3 for 3, 190, 3 TDs. All right, next up we have the New York Football Giants going to Washington to play the Washington football team. Washington is a 2.5-point favorite here, total of 43. It's going to be beautiful weather there. If anyone was watching television at all yesterday, they saw many people in Washington, D.C. The weather was great. I was there on the scene. I can tell you that it was good, and it will be good again today. And so for that reason, total of 43. Both these teams are not very good. I get it. Okay, both these quarterbacks are not very good. They'll throw a couple that give the other team a chance to score a touchdown. I will take over 43 in this one.
Yeah, the Giants at plus 3.5 early in the week, I think, offered some value, much like the Washington football team at 3.5. Their first meeting did on the road, much like that game. This game's going to close lower than that. 2.5 currently. I think there might be some value on Washington here, sort of given that they're coming off a bye. New York's coming off of a Monday night game. I do agree with you. I think the total's a little bit low, but I kind of like Washington here.
I'm going to give you, this game is all about Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones, and I give you a bit on either side that suggests he might do well or might do badly. Our PFF fantasy guy, Andrew Erickson, came up with the brilliant stat that might not mean a lot, but it's pretty funny. Daniel Dimes, 3-0 against Washington in his career, 1-17 against not Washington. So, he just carves up Washington for whatever reason. But he feels right now like a guy a lot like Carson Wentz, where they have, I think, the same problem. They're trying to do too much. And on plays that last longer than 2.5 seconds, Danny Dimes has a PFF grade of 58, which is one of the lowest in the NFL. He needs to figure out how to end a play and just cut bait and move on and not try and do too much and cause problems.
Golden Tate did not travel with the team. Apparently,
running laps instead.
He and Joe Judge not getting along. Who could have seen that one coming? All right, speaking of the fantasy side of things, my guy, Antonio Gibson, I have him locked in a couple of lineups this week, and I am praying that Ian Hartitz will tell me this is a smart decision and that Antonio Gibson is a great play this week. What are you thinking, Ian?
Particularly with bye weeks, the amount of injuries we have at the position, he definitely needs to be locked into pretty much anyone's top 20 among RBs this week. And I can see how this game goes well. I mean, okay, Danny Dimes, he's getting the wins, but you look at that game they played back in week 6, 112 passing yards, and they more or less leaned on, his legs. So we've seen this Washington defense, week 1 against the Eagles. Last time we saw them against the Cowboys, literally just thwart entire game plans just with their entire pass rush. Nobody's been pressured more often than Daniel Jones this year. I kind of see this game swinging towards Washington, them being able to control the clock, keep the ball most of the game, and force plenty of turnovers. And because of that, I think the game script is going to be, as ideal as possible for Antonio Gibson. Hopefully, post-bye week, we see J.D. McKissic less involved, even with the Gibson big breakout game against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago. He still pretty much split snaps down the middle with McKissic. But even while he's splitting snaps, it's a 2 RB committee at this point. We're getting 12 to 15 carries, 3 to 5 targets. Would it be great if those numbers doubled and we see, pretty much DC CMC out here? Yes. Not sure that's on the docket for today, but that remains in his range of outcomes. And either way, I just think this game is setting up very nicely for him.
Darius Slayton, wide receiver 2, 3. Where do you have him?
I think boomer bust wide receiver 3. Again, I'm a little worried about Daniel Jones and how he's going to be able to handle this pressure. But when we look back at that game from Monday night, whatever, the last primetime game where, okay, we know Slayton's been getting the air yards, but there were even occasions where he was just breaking free deep and Jones didn't have time to even overthrow the ball as he usually does when he looks his direction. So we know Slayton's got that 100-plus yard and multi-touchdown upside. I mean, did it against the Steelers in week 1 in an incredibly awful matchup. So he can always turn it around. I would just say, maybe we're underestimating the ceiling potential there for both him and Sterling Shepard, particularly with Golden Tate now out of the picture. So finally starting to get this passing game a little bit condensed. I'm looking forward to future matchups. I don't think the pass rush will be impacting him quite as much as it probably will today.
A couple of props that I really like here. No Devontae Freeman, Wayne Gallman, over 10.5 receiving yards, minus 120. And then something that I love, near and dear to my heart, over rushing yards for quarterbacks. Kyle Allen's not a very good quarterback, but he has 2 legs, and they work. Over 9.5 rushing yards for him, minus 115. I went over. Eric took Washington. Sam took the New York Giants. And Ian took the Washington football team. On to some games that matter a little bit more. The Baltimore Ravens, number 2 ranked team against the Indianapolis Colts, number 8. The Colts, this one's moved around a little bit. Colts now a 1-point underdog, total of 48. Obviously being played in a dome. I'll just say this. Baltimore Ravens played the Steelers. Steelers, a very different defense than the Colts. The Colts also have played the easiest schedule in the NFL. I will take the Baltimore football Ravens.
Yeah, I like the over in this one. I think Indianapolis is, they're playing, their schedule is 3 points per team worse than the average, schedule in the NFL. So that means every single game, they're 3-point favorites shaved off the top. The Ravens, I think people are reeling a little bit based upon the fact that they're now like plus 250 to win the AFC North. They had a ton of lofty goals this year, not a whole lot in the way of success so far in a sustainable way. Last week, the only quarterback who was less accurate was Ben DiNucci.
Than
Lamar Jackson. so that's not a good thing. But at the same time, I think they'll step up in class a little bit this week. And John Harbaugh is one of the few coaches where I think Frank Reich doesn't have a tactical advantage.
Yeah, I think everyone generally is asking, what is wrong with this Baltimore Ravens offense? I think the truth is there's a bunch of different things that are wrong with it this year compared to the year ago. But to me, the biggest thing is Lamar has regressed hard on the easier quarterback stuff. Like his PFF grade in tight window situations is actually the same as it was a year ago. His PFF grade on open targets, though, is like 10 points less. Last year it was 95, this year it's 86, and he's actually got more of them this year on pace for than he had a season ago. So he's getting the opportunities, he's just missing them.
One thing that was really interesting that our good friend Ben Lindsay came up with as we were prepping for next week's Sunday night game, Lamar Jackson was under pressure the least often of any quarterback last year. He's been under pressure like the third most often of any quarterback this season, which I think is interesting. He's still performing well under pressure, but the more times you're under pressure, the worse. Speaking of Lamar Jackson, it wasn't the greatest game in terms of football last week, real football. In terms of fantasy football, though, it hasn't been absolutely terrible, but he's not the top 3, 4, 5 guy that everyone kind of had him locked in to be. So, Ian, what's the outlook for Lamar Jackson today?
Yeah, he was actually still a QB7 in that Steelers game, and he had like a 20, 25-yard rushing touchdown nullified by a penalty. So, look at this Ravens team. They've lost to the Chiefs and the Steelers. The only two 7-win teams in the league. They're number 3 overall in point differential, only behind, I believe, the Chiefs and Buccaneers. This Ravens team is still legit. Are they the complete class of the league? No, but I think even though Lamar Jackson, regression is being a little bit overstated. He's still averaging as many yards per attempt as Tom Brady. He has a higher adjusted completion rate than Matthew Stafford. He's outside the top 20 in both those metrics. I'm certainly picking some stats here to help my argument. But Lamar Jackson, particularly as a fantasy quarterback, he's not going anywhere from a top, upside QB1 on a week-to-week basis. Is he that weekly, just overall number one option, no doubt about it, option? No, I get that. But, we need to keep going back to the wall here. Unless you have, a true top 5 guy like Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson should be your starting quarterback here moving forward. Intriguingly, he's actually lost more fantasy points per game this year from his rushing production compared to his passing production. He hasn't been running the ball quite as much. He is still on pace for the second most rush attempts ever, though, in a single season, only behind himself from last year. So, no, it's been, a lesser version of Lamar this year. But in fantasy land, even 90% of 2019 Lamar Jackson, still a pretty great fantasy quarterback to have week to week.
Would you target him in terms of trades? I know in some leagues, like week 10 is that deadline, at least is for me. I play in some 2-quarterback leagues. Should I be looking to try and get him?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we got these matchups against Indy and the Patriots over the next 2 weeks that he can win. He can win any matchup, but I get those aren't ideal. But after that, we got Titans, Steelers, rough spot, but then Cowboys, Browns, Jaguars, and Giants leading up to Championship Sunday. Had an article up on PFF on Friday. You can check it out there if you feel like it, everybody. But that was the general idea. But yes, Lamar, I think the public, is as far down on them as we've seen really over the past 18 months. Now is a great time to try to buy him before the stretch run.
All right, last question for you here. What the hell is going on with Jonathan Taylor?
It's been brutal, man. I would just say, look, like the top 5, top 8, aspirations we had for him are not looking good because before their bye week, Jordan Wilkins was hurt with a calf, and then he was off the injury report, but he still wasn't playing. And then coming out of the bye week was a situation where, okay, he was back and getting a lot of the run. But the Colts schedule has been so weird. And you guys mentioned it's been, the easiest schedule of the year. You look since week 1, they have not played really a normal neutral game script game. They've either been crushing teams and up multiple scores in the fourth, or they've actually fallen down in the first half, to the Browns and Bengals by multiple scores and kind of turns those into a Nyheim Hines game. So Jonathan Taylor has been the starter all year. They bring in Jordan Wilkins when they're up a bunch in the fourth quarter, and that's what we saw last week. So, no, I mean, it's annoying to have this 3-back committee. I don't think Taylor's going to be this top 10 back necessarily anytime soon, but let's not get too carried away. I've seen some people saying that, this is now Jordan Wilkins' backfield, and he's the one taking over. It's an annoying 3-back committee that's going to continue to change week to week. We can still treat Taylor, as a top 24 back, kind of on that RB2 borderline, but certainly the ceiling and floor alike are hurting as long as we have 3 backs so involved.
I will remind people, when you drafted him, you were not expecting him to be a top 5 back. Stop crying about the fact that he's not a top 5 back. I think this is my favorite prop, the entire slate. The entire one. Where's the crown? Where is my crown here? Okay. Lamar Jackson, over 1.5 passing touchdowns. It is plus 140. My gift from me to you.
And me.
Love you all. All right. Lions, Vikings. Matt Stafford will be playing in this game. Kenny Golladay will be out. So those are the two big notables for this one. Matt Stafford cleared the COVID protocol or whatever. He got a couple of negative tests, so he is good to go. Did not practice all week. Vikings are a 3.5-point favorite, total 51.5. Vikings are 19th ranked team. The Lions are Lions, number 26. Eric, which way are you going here?
Sam, you know what's going to happen, right? Get blown out at home by Atlanta. Really good game against Green Bay.
Yeah.
And they're going to get the doors blown off down here by Detroit. Here's the thing. One thing, we've been robbed in this game. We were going to get Cameron Dantzler, Quintez Cephas, figuring out who had the best 4.7 40. And instead, the Vikings, among many other corners, have to sit Dantzler down today. I understand the Golladay thing, and that's real. Marvin Jones, though, has been an absolute monster against Minnesota in the past. Danny Amendola. Stafford's playing. Offensive line for Detroit, not great. But who's rushing the passer for the Vikings? No one. And they're not going to be aided here by the wind. It's like, shaved a second off your 200 because of the wind at your back. That's exactly what Minnesota had last week against Green Bay. It's not going to happen. The Lions, for all their deficiencies, I think can at least slow down Minnesota enough in the run game to make this game close, and we know what happens when the game's close.
Yeah, I think that's critical, is that the Vikings won last week by loading up with this heavy formation on offense and basically running the ball down Green Bay's throats. It feels like they're the kind of team that will take that as a lesson as to what to do, even if it's not actually the right thing to do. And I think Green Bay is a lot worse at being able to contend with that 34% two tight end formation kind of deal that the Vikings have than Detroit is. So they'll probably try and load up again, run Dalvin Cook, and it just won't work as well against the Lions as it did against Green Bay. The one thing in their favor, though, is that Matthew Stafford is playing, but Kenny Golladay isn't, so real Matthew Stafford isn't playing.
That's true. That's fair, because when Kenny Golladay came back, they were the most efficient passing offense from an EPA per play perspective. Without him, it was not very pretty, and we're like, what the hell is going on? Kenny Golladay is really freaking good. Yeah. All right, he's clearly not Devontae Adams. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I had too much to drink the night before.
Have you seen his numbers this year?
He's incredible. Kenny Golladay is awesome, and he's not playing, and that is a big deal. Justin Jefferson, 90.2 overall grade. Dude is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
And he's able to do it from out wide, which was our big
But the rocket
question.
scientists this week, as well as
I got a pencil for you.
Okay, let me.
Now I think I know what you're talking about.
The rocket scientists this week, with help from Kirk Cousins, might be enough to stop Justin Jefferson.
You look so much smarter.
Thank you.
Now I can actually respect your opinion.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to our buddy Ian. Ian, some wide receiver questions in this game. You've got Marvin Jones, no Kenny Golladay. Does that move him up, and how far up your list does it move him?
Yeah, he's in my top 24 now. Look, he's not Kenny Golladay. If Kenny Golladay was healthy, he'd be everyone's, in their top 10 options. So we're not saying he is, but, similar to like kind of the Tennessee thing with A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, like it's okay to like two wide receivers in the same offense and know that one of them is better. And I think that's what we've seen with Marvin Jones. And we have a 7-game sample size of Marvin Jones playing throughout Kenny Golladay, a lot from Galladay's rookie year and also early on this year. He's averaged 9 targets per game without Golladay, 6.2 with Golladay, 15.6 PPR points per game without Golladay, 12.9 4.9 with. So we have seen, Stafford really rely on Marvin Jones as their number one wide receiver when Galladay has been out of the lineup. Beyond Marvin, I'm hesitant and kind of expecting much. To your guys' point, this offense, was, utilizing a lower average target depth and just not really looking as explosive in the first 2 weeks of the season without Galladay. But, Stafford, he's got the arm, he's got the ability to enable at least one guy, particularly against a defense that, we only have to go back 12 months to find the last time Marvin Jones went freaking nuclear against the Minnesota Vikings. And I think this version of their secondary is even worse than the version he hung 4 touchdowns on last year. So not saying he's going for 4 again, but at the very least, I think we can fire this guy up confidently as a wide receiver too.
You like both of the Minnesota wide receivers as well. Adam Thielen, let's see here if I can read this here, number 12 wide receiver. Justin Jefferson, number 18, both there locked in as wide receiver 2s. And you are taking the over. I had a feeling, just going through these games, I wonder, this feels like an Ian over game. And as soon as I thought that, I agreed with you 100%. So I like the money line. I like Detroit against the spread. I like the over. I'm all about it. I'll probably be proven drastically wrong. However, on the prop side of things, Kirk Cousins, over 21.5 completions plus 100. They're going to have to throw the ball late because, as you said, they're going to get blown out. And Matthew Stafford, under 0.5 interceptions. That means no interceptions, plus 125. All right, we're going to talk some DFS stacks for you in just a second. Hang tight. By the way, on this commercial break, you'll get to hear my voice, so you're welcome.
I'm going to help you guys figure out who to start in your fantasy lineups, and I'm going to do that by reading you some of PFF's consensus rankings. You can go to PFF.com and get the rankings from all 4 of our analysts. You could decide which quarterbacks or running backs or wide receivers or tight ends you want to play on your own. But if you don't have time for that and you're just hanging out listening, I'm going to help you out here. So we're going to run through quarterbacks first during the first break, and I'm going to start by going through 6 through 15. Here we go. In 6th is Lamar Jackson, 7, Tom Brady, 8, Justin Herbert, which was ahead of Aaron Rodgers. Number 10, Matt Ryan, 11, Cam Newton on Monday night against the Jets, 12, Derek Carr, 13, Ben Roethlisberger, 14, Ryan Tannehill, 15, Kirk Cousins, and 16, Matt Stafford, who looks like he is going to play. If you want to check out all of the rankings and all of our projections, see who's facing the weakest defense, you can go to PFF.com and get all of this with a PFF Edge subscription.
If you are hoping to win a lot of money in DFS this week, you need a stack that not too many people have and that goes off. And our man Ben Brown writes a great article every week where he looks at stacks that might have some players that a lot of people have, but where the stack is low ownership. We're going to give you 3 of them. You can read all of them at PFF.com. The first one goes to Buffalo. Josh Allen, Devin Singletary, Stephon Diggs, and Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, this one's nice because you're coming off of a game where maybe the public doesn't realize that Buffalo, crappy weather a week ago, tremendous weather this week. Also, like we know that the Seattle defense is bad, but the Buffalo defense being bad is an underrated aspect of this season. And so there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, and everybody's going to be flocking to Russell Wilson, to the Seahawks side of the ledger. But there's some value to be had on the Buffalo side of the ledger with Allen, Singletary getting most of the carries now, although Zach Moss had some run. You have to worry a little bit about that. Obviously, Diggs is getting a ton of targets a game. And then when you look again, it sort of seems like every other week with Seattle, Lockett, Metcalf. Let's go with Lockett here, a little bit cheaper at $6,800 on DraftKings, $7,400 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Josh Allen's dealing with a little bit of an injury. Maybe that's why he's come back down to earth.
Yes.
Stack numero dos. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, no Calvin Ridley today. Russell Gage and Jerry Jeudy on the Denver side of things. You figure if Julio Jones can just figure out how not to get injured in this game, he should be feasting because there's no one in the entire state of Denver that can cover.
Well, especially because Bouye and Callahan are both out, both inactive this week. They're a decent defense, although last week Justin Herbert gave them a lot of hell. So yeah, Ryan has had a really good season this year. He's picking up first downs at a rate that is better than all but one of his years in the NFL. Obviously, Julio, is the main player there, but Russell Gage at $4,500 as a number 2 receiver is a very, very good value. And you go over to the Denver side, Jeudy continues to impress, and with Drew Lock possibly getting some confidence from last week's game, maybe they'll hook up a little bit more than we've seen in the past. But again, both of those guys really cheap, so then if you want to go to pay up for running back, you can, or for another position, where you kind of are looking for a blue chip guy, you can, because those guys combine for a little bit on DraftKings, a little bit over $9 grand collectively.
And an even cheaper option goes to Los Angeles, where the Raiders and the Chargers square off. Derek Carr, Hunter Renfrow, who could not turn the double. His Clemson Tigers could not get it done yesterday, despite his best efforts. Henry Ruggs III, and then Keenan Allen. My favorite thing about this is that I think both these offenses are decent, but both these defenses.
Yeah, this might be
no Joey Bosa.
This might be the highest scoring game of the weekend, weirdly, just because, again, you look at, with the Chargers, especially in the middle 2 quarters of the game, Herbert's been like a top 10 quarterback in the entire NFL. When you look at Las Vegas, they're moving the football really well with Josh Jacobs. But Carr, showed a lot of toughness last week, showed a lot of accuracy. My concern with this one would only be that the Las Vegas Raiders like running the football too much. And if that's the case, you're not going to get as much out of Carr as you normally would. But the Chargers, what do? They generate leads, and then the other team comes back and throws on them. That's what you're looking for in this game.
All right, we've got Eric and I's lock of the week, and then a game that we disagree on. And so steak dinner, which I am up by a massive number. We haven't counted them officially. We may need a recount at some point here, but that will be ahead right after this break.
All right, during this break, I'm going to help you figure out which wide receivers to start, and I'm going to do that by reading you our consensus rankings for wide receivers. That's the consensus amongst all 4 of our analysts. You can go to PFF.com and see how each of them rank, all of these guys, see the strength of schedule, all their projections. But since we only have a few seconds here, I'm going to do my best. So I'm going to go 25 through 40 on our consensus ranks. Here we go. Number 25, Chase Claypool. 26, Amari Cooper, Mike Williams, DJ Chark Jr., Juju Smith-Schuster, Jerry Jeudy at 30. 31, Darius Slayton, followed by Devontae Parker, CeeDee Lamb, Sterling Shepard, Corey Davis, Laviska Shenault in 36. 37 is Henry Ruggs III, Cole Beasley, Russell Gage, Preston Williams, and Jacoby Myers. That's a bonus at number 41. Remember, you can get all of these on PFF.com, plus a ton more information. The cornerback wide receiver matchup chart, so you can see how likely it is that a guy is shadowed and who he'll be shadowed by. Go to PFF.com, get yourself an Edge subscription.
We are back. As Eric pointed out, I'm only ahead in the Electoral College. You can have the popular vote. The Bears and the Titans, our next game up. The Titans, number 10, after a couple of back-to-back losses, including here to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Chicago Bears are 18th, rake team. The Titans are a 6.5-point favorite, total now at 47. Difference between these two teams, interestingly, in terms of just our power rating, are 2.1. And I think that is a reason, at least for me, why I am not taking either side. I will take the over. No Jadeveon Clowney in this one. The Titans' defense is terrible. That'll help the Bears. The Titans' offense is awesome, and so it won't matter how good the Bears are.
Yeah, this is one that matches up really well, I think, for Chicago, which is why I like them. I also like the over as well. But here's my issue here. The Titans can't rush the passer. So all the Bears' deficiencies on the offensive line are minimal, right? The Bengals were playing like, Steve Palazzolo at left tackle last week and were able to put up 31 points, against the Titans. The Bears' defense is good, but I don't know, if a defense, no matter how good the defense is, if Tennessee's playing well on offense, they can stop them. So the over is in play as well. We saw a little bit of kind of spunk from the Bears' offense in the second half last week, throwing the ball down the field to Robinson, Mooney, Miller. They have, redeemable parts on that side of the football. We just need a good game from Nick Foles, and I think you get one. And if you bet the over, if he throws a pick six, that always plays.
You think we get a good game from Nick Foles? You've heard it here first, Chicago.
It's due at some point, right? He hasn't had one since the Super Bowl.
He was okay last week at the second half of the game.
Okay, he's been consistently okay. He just hasn't been good since he won the Super Bowl.
He was brutal against the Rams.
Right. I'm really curious to see the impact of Desmond King on this defense. I mean, Clowney's out, but he wasn't rushing the passer well anyway.
Yeah.
King can actually move the needle in terms of how they cover. He's been the best graded slot cornerback in the NFL since he came into the league. He's been a little bit worse this season, but he's replacing a guy with a PFF grade in the 30s. That should, in theory, be a monster upgrade for a defense that can't rush the passer or really cover anybody.
How do you give up only a sixth?
I have no idea.
Was that the Chargers' fault? It was the Chargers were just hey, this guy's free. Do you have a free Big Mac voucher that we can get?
There must be something, on the personnel side that's an issue there. And, the clock's ticking and all that kind of stuff. We saw a ton of trades not materialize. Randall Cobb, Will Fuller, also Riley Reif with Minnesota. Another player the Titans had, targeted. They just can't get the trades done.
Big shock. All right. From a fantasy perspective, Corey Davis has secretly, to many, had a very, very good season. A.J. Brown's the guy that everyone loves. Ian, you're firing both these guys in your lineups. Where do you have both of them ranked?
This year, A.J. Brown is the wide receiver 7 in PPR points per game, and Corey Davis sitting right there as the wide receiver 16. So only 2 targets separate these guys in the entire season. A.J. Brown is objectively better. But look, Tannehill has been pretty much a top 10 quarterback by any metric we have ever since he took over under center. So it makes sense that a top 10 quarterback can enable more than one fantasy relevant wide receiver. And while this offense is still a run-first unit, we've actually seen them run plays at a much faster pace in 2020 compared to 2019. It seems like they really, are accepting reality with Tannehill under center. They realize the passing game is good, and because of that, while they're still, a run-heavy team, only the Cardinals and Cowboys have a higher situation-neutral pace this season. So, they're out there to try and get as many plays as possible, and because of that, we've seen enough volume open up in this passing game for Davis and Brown. You throw in the reality that Adam Humphries is in the concussion protocol still, and I think we can treat both these guys as legit top 20 options. And, not a great spot by any stretch, but I do think, you look at these kind of game totals on the slates and the ones that are under 50, which one could potentially shoot out, and I do think it is Titans-Bears if we can get even a decent game out of Nick Foles here.
Yeah, give me the over, baby. Let's get it. David Montgomery is your running back 12. That means that you would tell me to take him and put him in my lineup over Antonio Gibson? How dare you?
Look, it's not sexy. I get it, and Gibson certainly has the higher ceiling, but we've seen 5 games ever since Tariq Cohen has been sidelined, and Montgomery is the definition of a volume-based RB2. He's finished as the RB27, RB13, RB14, RB24, and RB19. Look, I understand he's not the guy that's going to be breaking off 80-yard runs, but we should put a little respect on this guy's name. Nobody has broken more tackles this season than Dave Montgomery. The Bears have the second worst offensive line yards before contact, only ahead of the Jets. Again, I realize, having burst and having that big playability is a big part of the running back position. But there's been a lot of runs this year where Montgomery pretty much makes the most out of a game that likely would have been, in the negatives for more guys than not. So, Titans defense without Clowney, we mentioned him not being great as a pass rusher. I do think his impact could, be felt more harshly against the run, and that would be where Montgomery could feasibly thrive.
If Montgomery didn't lead the league in broken tackles, he would never gain a single yard because he can't get past the line of scrimmage without breaking a tackle. I was told I was given some feedback. I didn't really connect with you all when it came to the props, and that's my fault. So I want to apologize from the bottom of my heart. This game has plenty of props. I have 3 that I love. The first, Ryan Tannehill. I don't know if you know this. He played wide receiver in college. His rushing over-under is 11.5. Over, plus 110. Derrick Henry, the man can rumble. It's sweet. It's beautiful. Over 9.5 receiving yards, minus 110. I love it. And then Corey Davis, under 4.5 receptions, minus 125. 4.5 is kind of a lot. He can still have a good game. Don't worry. Those are your 3 props. Is that enough for you, Austin? Hopefully it was. Panthers, Chiefs in Kansas City. Should be a little windy there. 74, 17 mile per hour winds. The Kansas City Chiefs, a 10-point favorite. At 10.5, Eric and I had a little bit of a disagreement. I have the Panthers, plus 10.5. You have the Chiefs, minus 10.5. This is for my 5th steak dinner. I'm going to be, I don't know.
I thought it was 3. I don't know. Well, recount.
I look forward to your press conference in front of the Skyline Chili later today to tell me.
Skyline Chili and construction
yes.
and landscape.
All
Stop
right.
the count.
You don't have the balls to actually take the Chiefs here today at 10. You are going with the over, which I like.
The over's the right play.
It is. I agree.
The only thing,
saying you are not backing up.
The only thing that keeps the over from happening is the fact that the Carolina Panthers do like to slow the game down, with
Christian
limited
McCaffrey
number of
back.
possessions. Yeah. They went under against Atlanta the last time we saw them. They I think went under against New Orleans previously. They're a team, even though they're relatively efficient offensively, likes to produce unders. In this game, though, Bridgewater has been more prone to turnovers than we're used to for him. The Chiefs actually have been a better defense at producing them than they were in the past. So I think what you get here is you get, a defensive score by Kansas City. Kansas City really good special teams as well, and that's going to be enough, I think, for Kansas City to cover this number and for Carolina to be sort of in that position where they're going to be scoring touchdowns to get this thing over the total and possibly under the number.
I should note, total 51.5 now, so it has moved a little bit. You can grab it.
In the other direction. We had it 51 earlier the week, got to 52.5 coming back here apparently. Kansas City weather possible, maybe the reason, I don't know.
Yeah, I think Bridgewater having to have a clean game to avoid Kansas City covering this is a big point because he hasn't really been doing that this year. He's seen as this hyper-conservative quarterback, but a guy that doesn't put the ball in harm's way, but he has been this season. He's got a turnover-worthy play rate of just over 4%. That's right behind Nick Foles in terms of carelessness with the football. If he does that, if he puts the ball in harm's way and the Chiefs pick it off, it's a big swing in their direction. I'm also intrigued to see whether the Panthers learned any lessons with McCaffrey being out or whether they immediately go back to the run the system through McCaffrey offense.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Chiefs have kind of poor linebackers. So if you are sort of galaxy braining your way around this game plan, you might think, let's feature McCaffrey more, even though that probably isn't the positive EV play.
Mike Davis had a 90 or above. It was at least 90 for most of the time that he played. Receiving grade. It was basically like him and Alvin Kamara. The guy was really good. Word is that they will kind of be splitting a little bit of the workload between those two guys. So it seems like they actually watched Mike Davis play football, which is good. Ian, that brings me to you. It has been a long time for McCaffrey owners. They've been sitting there. Maybe they have managed to sustain thanks to Mike Davis. Now they have Christian McCaffrey back. How are you advising people get him back into their lineups today? Is there anyone that you might actually be playing over him?
I mean, if you're in a 2 running back league and you have Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, and Christian McCaffrey, then maybe we can have a conversation. Otherwise, McCaffrey should not be leaving that RB1 spot unless you're trying to light a fire under the guy and put him in your flex. I realize that report came out, but you know what? I've also seen that same reporter say a lot of things about workload over the years that haven't exactly come to fruition. I'm not buying that for a second, man. The Panthers have 64 million reasons to give McCaffrey every touch he can handle. Look, Mike Davis is fine, but look, they made Christian McCaffrey. They gave him that deal for a reason. He's going to be out there getting every touch he can get. My question is, kind of to Sam's point, will they continue to run the offense through him, or will they let the passing game go through DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson? Because last year, 54% of Kyle Allen's targets to the running back were on his first read. This year, Teddy Bridgewater's at a much more reasonable 36%. So I think it's been a better offense because of that. We were talking about the Texans earlier being a better offense because they don't force feed one player all the time. They kind of let the plays in the game come to them as the defense dictates it. So we'll see what happens. I do worry that McCaffrey's not going to have that same all-world target share from last year, but even with 80% of those targets, he's still going to be anyone's idea of a weekly top 3 back. So he's back. Get him in the lineup. Don't ever take him out.
One of my favorite things about fantasy football is when the guy comes into your replies, and it doesn't happen to me, but it happens to you, and he's like, hey, here are these 5 wide receiver ones. Can you help me pick 3? It's my favorite. I love those.
It's a great problem to have sometimes.
Man, I just want to know what leagues, do people actually create leagues where it's just them and they get to accumulate?
I think I have a better question. So Ian said they signed McCaffrey for a reason. I'm still trying to find that reason, by the way.
It's to put fans in the stands, in case
sure.
you were wondering. The Le'Veon Bell revenge game was impressive as hell. 7 rushes, I think 6 yards. Maybe I flip-flopped the 2. Either way, incredible.
And the Chiefs lost as a result of not establishing the run.
Right, exactly. So my question to you, Ian, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is he still an RB2?
I think he's still an RB1. I think that game that the Jets put forward on defense against the Chiefs was arguably the worst game plan we've seen from a defense this season. 45% of Patrick Mahomes' pass attempts came against boxes with at least 7 defenders in them. Remember a few weeks ago when people were almost chastising the Bills for the way they played the Chiefs? Only 8% of his pass attempts in that game came against a loaded box. Basically, the Bills were content trying to win the game, facing Clyde Edwards-Helaire in this run game. The Jets dared Patrick Mahomes to pass, and that's why he ended up having 42 freaking pass attempts and 45 minutes of action. So kudos to you, Greg Williams, old football guy. You stopped the run. How'd that work out for you? So we do look at the Panthers, and they've been, a much smarter defense. They are a top 5 defense in terms of, pass attempts against lighter boxes. So look, the Chiefs, Andy Reid, we know that when the box is light, they're going to run the ball. When you stack it, they're going to pass the ball. Can they probably pass it, whatever the defense is doing? Absolutely. But I do think, this has been more of a balanced offense than people give credit for throughout the season. And I think the Panthers are going to be, playing smart and trying to stop Mahomes first and foremost. So I think because of that, we'll see Clyde, and to a little bit lesser extent, Le'Veon, get back going. I do think Clyde will continue to be the more fantasy relevant player, and I'm comfortable treating him as a top 15 option in this spot.
Unfortunately for me, having Kamara, Cook, and McCaffrey, Clyde Edwards-Helaire will not make it into my starting lineup this week. I apologize. However, I will not apologize for this. I said I really liked a couple of props so far. No. These are sensational. Patrick Mahomes last week, 2.5 passing touchdowns. I told you it would happen in 1/2, and it did. That's the same line this week, plus 110. Will he need 3 quarters? I doubt it. Teddy Bridgewater, we've talked about his carelessness. He will be running. He will be running forward past the line of scrimmage to the tune of over 12.5 rushing yards, minus 115 in the 2 quarterbacks I trust. By the way, you can get the PFF props tool on PFF.com. That's what I use. So if you think it's just the king by himself here, no, his army travels with him. That's very important. All right, Seahawks-Bills in Buffalo. A lot of people talking about how this game is going to be, it's in Buffalo, the wind. The weather is beautiful. It's 62, 5-mile-an-hour winds, no chance of rain, easy. Bills are 12th ranked team. The Seahawks are our 5th ranked team. The Bills at home are a 3-point underdog, total of 55. This one was tough for me. I thought about the over. It's a lot of points. Then I thought about Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and I took the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think I like Seattle here too. The only issue is both defenses suck, right? So,
is that an issue, or?
I mean, well, if you're we saw this 2 weeks ago. If you have a bad defense against a competent offense and you're laying points on the road, it can be a tough thing for a team like Seattle. That being said, I think Allen has some issues, obviously injury-wise, as we said earlier. And they're getting Jamal Adams back. Allen's the kind of guy who invites pass rush, which is good for Seattle because they can't produce it themselves. So there are some things to like about Buffalo here, but on balance, I'm going to take probably the league MVP at this point. Newly minted head coach with his contract extension, and the Seattle Seahawks minus the points.
The let Russ cook movement has been undeniably successful, undeniably productive. On the other hand, I do wonder if this is a game in which they will be tempted to move him from out of the kitchen to the front of house and service and meet and greet and that kind of thing. This Bills defense is just so bad against the run that they basically invite you into that kind of game plan, which is, not the Russ Cook movement. They are 28th in explosive run rate and yards after contact. They're 31st in terms of missed tackles. They've missed 146 tackles as a defense. This is basically daring Pete Carroll to do that with which he always wants to do.
Well, and not only that, but without Star Lotulelei out, opting out this season, it's been basically one of those where they don't even have the equipment to do this type of thing, which is to have like a nose tackle to hold the point of attack down enough so you're not giving up 8 to 9 yards to carry, you're just giving up 3 to 4, which So I like the strategy on hold. They just don't. They literally don't have like the players to do it at a passable level.
Speaking of out, Carlos Hyde and Chris Carson are both out, which leaves DJ Dallas as the running back in Seattle. One of the best names we've been thinking.
Isn't that Renner Stripper's name?
We've been talking about how great this name is since he was in college, and now he gets a chance in the NFL. So Ian, DJ Dallas, where are you spinning him up this week?
Yeah, I've got a lot of start-sit questions with him, and honestly, I'm picking the other guy almost every single time because I don't think we're going to see that same, 3-down role for him that we had last week. Yeah, Chris Carson, Carlos Hyde are out again, but we're getting a healthier version of Travis Homer, and blast from the past, Alex Collins is active for the Seahawks today. So I'm just not convinced that Dallas did enough last week to get that same role moving forward. Yeah, he fell into the end zone twice, but he had 20-plus touches and couldn't rip off a single rush attempt or a reception that totaled even 10 yards. So don't think it was exactly the performance to, earn a bunch of goodwill moving forward. With Collins involved, with a healthier Homer, I think we see more of a split situation here.
Yeah, you have DJ Dallas 46th in your running back ranking. So if you think Ian is not telling the truth there, he really hates this guy. Get another running back in there. He's not being soft there in any way, shape, or form. Some guys have him in the 20s or something like that. No, DJ Dallas, complete fade. Go elsewhere. A guy that you are not fading, DK Metcalf, who some have called DJ, and I kind of like it because when he touches the ball, you better get the house music ready to rock. Number 4 in your wide receiver rankings. So you're not worried at all about Tre'Davious White?
I mean, look, once we saw Metcalf roast Stephon Gilmore on primetime, I stopped worrying about other cornerback matchups with him. And even the one game that it seems like it gets to him year after year is the Cardinals game and Patrick Peterson. And I'm not even sure if that's Patrick Peterson. I think that's Russell Wilson, who has played in the same division with Patrick Peterson his entire career, still respecting, that ghost of Patrick Peterson that we see out there more Sundays than not. So, no, I don't think there's a cornerback in the league that should change your projection with DK Metcalf. Continue to fire him up as, a top, 3 option at the position pretty much. If you want to go 5, fine, but either way, he's in there.
My guy. Props on the wide receiver front as well. Tyler Lockett, under 5.5 receptions. That's a high number, plus 110. I'll take that. And then Josh Allen. You talked about moving him to the front. Valet time for Josh Allen, under 290.5 passing yards is minus 120. I don't feel great about it, but sometimes you got to listen to the math. You got to hold your nose because here comes the cold water. Segment coming up next. Start sit. Sit tight.
During this break, I'm going to do my best to help you figure out your lineups this week. We're going to talk about running backs here. I'm going to go through some of our consensus rankings on PFF.com. This is a consensus between all 4 of our rankers. You can, of course, go to PFF.com and check all these out for yourself, see their strength of schedule, a bunch more stuff, plus a bunch of great stats you can download and play around with yourself. But we only have a few here, so I'm going to do my best. I'm going to go 15 through 30 in our running back rankings. Here we go. Number 15, it was Jermichael Hasty, already played. DeAndre Swift in 16th. 17th is Justin Jackson. J.K. Dobbins, Melvin Gordon, Jerick McKinnon, Jonathan Taylor, Leonard Fournette at number 22. 23 is DJ Dallas, playing for the Seattle Seahawks. Number 24, Damian Harris, followed by Devin Singletary, Rojo, Wayne Gallman, Gus Bus Edwards, J.D. McKissick, Le'Veon Bell is at number 30. Number 31, Zach Moss, followed by James White, LaMichael Perrine, Naheem Hines, Latavius Murray, Philip Lindsay, Joshua Kelly is 37th, Rex Burkhead 38, Brian Hill 39, and Jordan Wilkins is 40. By the way, I have to let you know 41 is Frank Gore, which will be the age that he plays until. Go to PFF.com and check these all out for yourself with the PFF Edge subscription.
It is start-sit time with Ian Hartitz. We've got some quarterbacks that one of whom is undefeated, but you're sitting him, and there's a reason. I totally back it up. And there's another guy who people like to hate on but you're showing him some respect, and you're starting him. We'll start with the quarterbacks here, Ian.
I have been a long-time hater of Derek Carr, but hey, the guy's playing great football in 2020, and that's all we care about. Already has 5 games with at least 250 passing yards and multiple touchdowns. He only had 4 such games like that in 2019, 3 in 2018, and 3 of 17. So truly a newfound floor, in this passing game and ceiling as well, fueled by Derek Carr. And you look at this Chargers team, when they are healthy on defense, we're talking one of the best defenses in the league. Far from the case right now. Now they're losing Joey Bosa. Even with Joey Bosa over the past 4 weeks, you've seen game totals with the Chargers ending in 69, 57, 68, and most recently 61. I think the Chargers and Raiders game is locked for a shootout, and Derek Carr is going to be a big reason why. On the other side of things, though, I will be sitting Ben Roethlisberger. He's doing a great job in real life of leading them to their undefeated record and doing everything they need to do. We obviously saw what happened last season when when he's not on the field, that's the biggest problem. So yeah, stay healthy, Big Ben. Keep doing you, but have not seen the same, any sort of fantasy upside. He only failed to reach 250 yards once in 2018. That's already happened 5 times this season. He's got a career low average target depth. We don't know who the ball is going to go to. And look, for the Cowboys, I don't think we can really compliment any part of their defense, but their run defense has just been so bad that I think teams, really have just haven't strayed to pass the ball all that much. We've only seen Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, and Jared Goff throw for more than 250 yards against this Cowboys defense this year. Again, I don't think that's because their secondary is great. I just think it's so easy to run on them that teams have been able to do that. Fully expect that to be the case with James Conner. So Big Ben, I'm sure he'll be efficient. I'm sure he'll lead the Steelers to victory as usual. Still don't think he'll be a QB1 this week.
Yeah, they're 14.5 point favorites, so he might not even play the full game. Running backs, you're killing me with the Melvin Gordon hate. Also, I don't actually love Melvin Gordon, but go ahead.
I know you're the resident PFF truther for Melvin Gordon. It's okay, man. You can just own it. But no, I'm going to be starting Justin Jackson in 3 games since Eckler went out. He's had 21, 11, and then 22 combined carries and targets. Troymaine Pope came in last week, and I think that's why people are kind of getting a little afraid off of Justin Jackson. But Pope came in, and first of all, he's not going to be out there today, but he just impacted Joshua Kelly. Like, this has been Jackson's backfield really ever since he's been out there. And, all those same points I made about Derek Carr being in a fantasy-friendly environment with a shootout potential also apply to Justin Jackson. So I think he's, really on DFS too, just the cheapest kind of running back you can expect for at least 15 touches, and obviously a great season-long start as well. I will be sitting Melvin Gordon. He's been fine when Phillip Lindsay is out. That's when they give him the featured, workhorse role. When Lindsay's in there, though, as he will be today, we have seen much more of a 50-50 split down the middle. There has been, I think it's 125 players this year have at least 15 targets, and Melvin Gordon is dead last in yards per target. Like, I understand he came to Denver being, the receiving friendly back, but I think at some point it really wouldn't surprise me if we see Phillip Lindsay take over this situation. Not saying that's going to happen this week, but either way, I don't think Gordon's going to be, getting more than 12 to 15 touches. Likely won't be, all that efficient with him.
Yeah, Phillip Lindsay's just a better running back, and that's not saying much. All right, wide receivers and tight ends, you are launching Antonio Brown into your starting lineups, and I love it.
Get him right in there. And look, it's not hating on Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. Just like when Brady brought AB to the Patriots, I'm sure he wasn't hating on Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman, but that didn't stop him from feeding AB over those guys in just 24 snaps together. So, I just don't see a world where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would have gone through all this bad PR, all these, backdoor meetings they must have had to get this deal done in order just to not give him a featured role. We saw Bruce Arians earlier in the week saying maybe he'll play 10 snaps, maybe he'll play 30, and slowly but surely we've seen the coach speak from him and their GM alike, start to trend in a more and more positive direction. So he's going to go out there against the Saints defense that, I think can play better than they have shown this year, but either way, their cornerbacks haven't been holding up nearly as well as we thought they might. Treat AB as a legit top 16 option this week. I will be sitting Amari Cooper. We just don't know what's going on in this offense. And with Dak and Dalton under center, it did seem like Cooper was the outright number 1 wide receiver. But, with anyone else under center, mostly just Ben DiNucci, we have no idea what's going to happen with Garrett Gilbert. It has been more of, an even split between Cooper, Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb. So, in this Cowboys offense, just avoid playing anyone if you can at the moment. This is a worst-case scenario spot. And then quickly at tight end, I'm starting Jonnu Smith. It's been a little bit down in recent weeks, but, coming back from that knee injury, we did see his route spike back last week. I think he finally gets back to doing his thing. I mentioned before about the Bears and Titans being a potential sneaky shootout. On the other side of things, I am sitting every Colts, Texans, and Vikings tight end option. Great players on every single team. Fells, Akins, Rudolph, Irv, And then, with the Colts, with Mo Alley Cox and Trey Burton and Jack Doyle, all these guys, if it was just one of them, we could ride with. But the way it stands, they're all healthy. I know they haven't all been healthy in recent weeks, but when all these guys are healthy, we cannot go the well there. So find someone else. Logan Thomas is someone maybe you can find in the waiver wire still. We cannot have tight end committees. The position is already volatile enough. If you got more than 2 tight ends in one offense, you do not have one in fantasy land.
Tight end committees are good for nobody. Maybe one of them can get injured and we can figure it out. We'll be back with a little bit of Raiders-Chargers discussion. We're about 45 minutes away from kick. Hang with us.
If you're like me, that means that about this time you're freaking out about which random tight end to play because you know that one of them is going to end up breaking out. So I'm going to do my best to help you out. I'm going to read you our consensus rankings for tight ends. I'm going to go 1 through 20. Just going to maybe even 1 through 25. We'll see how I feel. Might get a little excited. You can go check all of these out for every one of our 4 rankers on PFF.com. I'm going to read you the consensus ranks for tight ends heading into Week 9. Here we go. Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, Noah Fant at number 4. Number 5 is TJ Hockenson. Number 6, Hunter Henry, followed by Gronk, Hayden Hurst, Evan Ingram. Jonnu Smith is 10. 11 is Jared Cook, passer rating when targeted king, followed by Eric Ebron, Robert Tonyan, who already played, Jimmy Graham, Mike Gesicki, Logan Thomas, Jordan Reed, Trey Burton, Jordan Atkins, and Greg Olsen at number 20. And a couple of bonuses here. Dalton Schultz, followed by Irv Smith Jr., followed by Kyle Rudolph, followed by Mo Alley Cox. Go to PFF.com and check out all of our rankings, plus the plethora of fantasy stats, article content, and tools at PFF.com.
We are back, a little more than 30 minutes to kick off. I did some bad math earlier, I apologize. We're going to start with Broncos-Falcons. Falcons are 20th ranked team. Broncos, number 22. The Falcons, a 4-point favorite, total 48.5. This is obviously being played in a dome. According to our power ratings, these two teams just barely different, 0.2 point difference. And for that reason, I will take the underdog getting more than a field goal in the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, if I had to pick something in this game, I'd take the over. I mean, when you look at Denver, their defense are without their 2 top corners. Atlanta without one of their best receivers, but still an offense that can kind of hum. A defense that is not very good at all. But this one's, one of the least entertaining games, I think, on the slate. Early.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, give me Atlanta. Look, we saw last week that the Matt Ryan to Julio Jones connection is not done as a force. It still has juice. It can be productive even without Calvin Ridley there. And Denver don't have anybody healthy who can cover. So they're going to put up some points, and I like them to cover.
Least entertaining games, you make them entertaining by betting on the game.
The Broncos are buried. The Falcons are buried. Atlanta already delivered for 2020.
Hatred.
We're good.
Your hatred is
I'm done with
unacceptable.
Atlanta at this point.
By the way, Calvin Ridley is out for this game. The guy that is not out, that is playing receiver, is Jerry Jeudy. And so I go to Ian now. Ian, you look at Jerry Jeudy, obviously his talent is awesome. People love watching the guy play. There's probably a little bit of extra juice on him because of that. You have him right there on the cusp of that wide receiver 3 range with guys like Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Darius Slayton. What is it? Are you excited about Jeudy going forward, or are you kind of pressing pause for now?
Particularly in DFS this week, sitting there at that 4,700 price tag on DraftKings, I think one of the cheaper options that still gives you a bunch of upside at the position. There's just not much value really in the slate this week. So someone like Jeudy against a secondary that's allowed more receiving yards to the wide receiver position than anyone other than the Seahawks. Look, I know Drew Lock has pretty much been a Jekyll and Hyde QB throughout his career. He has more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws in his 10 career starts. It would make sense that the Falcons could be his 3rd usable start. I'm not even really ready to go on a limb that far with it, but I do think he can do enough here to maybe enable his number 1 wide receiver to his first true breakout game. Jeudy, look, I think it was our own Mike Renner who said that he was one of the best route runners to come out of the draft in the past 10 years. It's been too long for this guy not to have a huge game, so I think this is finally the matchup. All the stars are aligning. Get Jerry Jeudy in there for DFS, and don't be afraid to go the well with him as a legit upside wide receiver 3 flex option in season long.
Ian is hopping on the Atlanta Falcons bandwagon at -4. I'm sure that will end well for both of you two. the Falcons as a favorite without Calvin Ridley. That seems like a good situation.
Good job.
I'm going to hop on the Drew Lock bandwagon from a
Oh,
props
that seems to make sense too.
Yes,
Much
I don't know
more
if you-
stable.
He had a great fourth quarter, and in that, I'm extrapolating forward. No, the real reason is I like his no interceptions prop, plus 120, because it's plus.
He's playing the Chargers and the Falcons in consecutive weeks of the same team.
Yes, the Falcons may get many opportunities to pick off a pass, and if there was one team that I would bet on not to actually pick one off, it would be the Atlanta Falcons. The other one, I like this one more, and that's Brian Hill, over 12.5 receiving yards. Brian Hill is the best running back on the Atlanta Falcons, and it's not even freaking close. Have you seen Todd Gurley try to get to the edge? No, you have not, because he has not gotten to the edge yet. He has tried. It does not work. He cannot get there. Brian Hill is a better running back, over 12.5 receiving yards. Count it. All right, a much more exciting game. The Las Vegas Raiders are going from one dry desert and a dome to another dry desert and a dome to play the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are a 1.5 point underdog here, total 52.5. I'm just going to say this. I look at both these teams. I get that people love Justin Herbert. I understand it. He's fun to watch. The Raiders are the better team.
Yeah. I don't know. Their defense stinks.
But defense is like, okay.
Yeah. But
Their offense is legit.
Carr's the quarterback I'd take, right now over. And the Raiders have pretty good weapons. I mean, Ruggs is pretty good. Obviously, Waller's terrific. And, Jacobs has been a player that's moved the pile a little bit for them week in and week out. Again, I do like the Raiders here, but it's not like a strong play.
Yeah, clearly. Lack of strength over here.
On the other hand, at some point, the Chargers surely have to stop blowing 17-plus point leads.
Is that like a physical law? I don't
Yes,
think it has to.
it is.
Actually doesn't
It's
have
an
to happen.
official
We've had
law.
the Falcons for 4 years.
It's now been proclaimed, the Monson Law. You can only have 3 of them. 3 in a season, and that is the end. No more 17-point
Will
blown
this be
leads.
better or worse than elusive rating?
Your elusive rating's holding up fine. Look, at some point, Justin Herbert is still writing all these highly volatile stats. I don't think that's going to go away until after the season. So he's going to do well. At some point, the Chargers defense just needs to stop collapsing.
Yeah, but you know what? One thing that's going to stay constant until it's not is Anthony Lynn is the head coach of the San Diego/Los Angeles Chargers of Anaheim, and they can't maintain a lead at the end of the game.
I know.
And Carr, look, we want to make a line of quarterback. Okay, after this quarterback, I don't trust him at the end of the game. Carr is clearly just barely, he's like the most frustrating quarterback above that line, right? If you're holding a Chargers ticket today, God bless you.
It is going to be harder to come back from a 17-plus point deficit when you're checked down in your way all the way.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
We are still waiting to hear on Joey Bosa, but he is doubtful. We do not expect him to play. Casey Hayward Jr. is questionable. Colton Miller has been questionable for most of his career and is still questionable.
And Desmond King is in Tennessee.
Today. And Desmond King is in Tennessee. Trent
They
Brown
don't need
out.
him. They don't need him.
Maurice Hurst is also out. Speaking of Justin Herbert, Ian, a couple weeks ago, you told us he was going to blow up. You seem to be the Justin Herbert reader of tea leaves. So in this game against the Raiders, who do not have a very good defense, where does Justin Herbert fall in your QB rankings?
I mean, if you say he's going to blow up pretty much every week this year, that's what we've been getting. He's thrown for at least 300 yards and or 3 touchdowns through the air in every single game this season. So there will be a rookie floor at some point. I just don't think it's going to come against who we have graded as, PFF's single worst overall, secondary in terms of just coverage grades. So we've seen the Chargers offense continue to put up points. If Keenan Allen was out, maybe that'd be a little concerning, but he's good to go. So feeling great about Herbert. I mean, literally only Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, and Patrick Mahomes have averaged more fantasy points per game than Herbert. Again, this guy can't keep being this great for the entire season, but I'm not sure this week 9 matchup is a spot to stop going to the well. Expecting a full-on shootout between the Raiders and Chargers, and Herbert should be, the nucleus for most of those points. So continue to treat this guy as, the top 7 fantasy QB he's been all season.
Very smart of you to go with the Las Vegas Raiders as well as a short favorite here in Los Angeles. And my 2 props for this game are giving Derek Carr a little bit of respect. It's about damn time that Derek Carr get some respect, and I'm going to give it to him this week. Derek Carr, well, kind of, over 8.5 rushing yards. He's going to scamper around. Now, he may fumble it out of the back of the end zone afterwards. I'm not promising that.
Look,
It's
Okay.
a very limited degree of respect.
But he has the athleticism to get over 8.5 rushing yards plus 105. You know I love over rushing yards props for quarterbacks, so you should too. We move on to the Miami football Dolphins against the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are 13th ranked team. The Dolphins have been playing some really good football regardless of their quarterback play. Tua did not play well, but they did as a team, making Jared Goff look like a valet guy at California Pizza Kitchen more so than an NFL quarterback. And landscaping. Actually, I don't know if I'd want him doing any landscaping, to be honest.
His fingers might hurt.
I don't think that would look good afterwards. The Cardinals are now a 6-point favorite, total 49. And I'll just start off with this. 6 is too many points. The Cardinals are not that good. The Miami Dolphins defense with Brian Flores, those two corners, and Xavier Howard and Byron Jones are legit. So give me the Dolphins as a big underdog.
Yeah, I think Mike Renner actually pointed this out when Howard, Igbenogany, and Jones are in the lineup at the same time. The Dolphins don't give up big plays. They don't give up passes over 15 to 20 yards in the air. With Arizona, they obviously love to pepper the underneath game, but they're terrible in the middle, like the 10 to 19 range, and then they like to hit a big shot every once in a while. If those big shots aren't available, like how is Arizona going to score in this game? Now that the number's out at 6, I do like the Dolphins. I think Tua plays a lot better than he played last week. I also think that the Arizona Cardinals, without Chandler Jones, are not going to be able to produce the pass rush that's going to take advantage of kind of a weak Dolphins offensive line. I think there might be a little bit of value on the over here, but given how good the Dolphins defense has played, I think the best side is the Dolphins side here.
Yeah, I agree. I think Miami is definitely better than that line. But I think it is a legit concern, again, for this defense against Tua. It's a very different challenge than it was a week ago, where it was basically just contain Aaron Donald and you're good. The Cardinals blitz a lot. They don't have Chandler Jones anymore, but they have the third highest blitz team in the NFL, 40+%. 2 of the last 2 years at Bama had a PFF passing grade above 85 against the blitz, and an NFL passer rating of at least 125 against the blitz. So everything we've seen from Tua says he handles the blitz really well, but this is NFL blitzing.
Well, it looks like this will be a pretty good game for whomever gets the tight end love in Miami. Now, we don't know who it is, right? Gesicki was supposed to be that guy, but he's, kind of whittled away a little bit. Shaheen has been another one. But, when you look at the passing maps, Devontae Parker's the best player on that team, but their passing maps, the routes Parker likes to run and the routes Tua likes to throw, are not that congruent. So is it going to be a tight end, sort of in the middle of the field against linebackers for Arizona that aren't very good? I think that's probably where Tua is going to have to make his money today.
Tight End Love, a new podcast at PFF.
Yep.
That'll be a good one. You guys should stay tuned wherever you get your podcasts. All right, this is going to be a tough conversation for me, but you have to have tough conversations sometimes. Kenyon Drake. He's not playing, and when he was playing, he wasn't very good, and that has opened the door for Chase Edmonds. So, in order to bring my spirits up, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let people know that Chase Edmonds, he's your 8th ranked running back, 6th in our consensus rankings, and that is a solid 12 spots higher than Zeke Elliott. That makes me feel a little bit better. Talk to me about why you like Chase Edmonds so much this week.
He's been someone on the PFF Fantasy Football podcast that we've been hyping up really since the summer months. It's been him, Latavius Murray, Alexander Madison, and Tony Pollard as the 4 true handcuffs that we knew would be flirting with, not overall, but weekly RB1 status. And we've seen Mike Davis emerge from that. Obviously Kareem Hunt, but he's got standalone value. But we always had our eye on Edmonds because last year with the Cardinals, it was a one-back backfield, whether it was Drake, David Johnson, or the 1 week with Edmonds. That guy was playing 80, 90% plus snaps. And it's just very rare to see that in today's NFL. Usually it's committee situations everywhere. Now, 2020 Cardinals were, more of a 2-back situation with Drake getting most of early down work and Edmonds playing well enough to get his receiving work. But now you take Drake out of that picture, and I'm just not convinced we see Eno Benjamin get much of anything here. I think Edmonds could be right around that 90% elite snap rate. And I think that's the Dolphins defense that they are very good. Number 1 ranked scoring defense and everything, but much stronger against the pass with Byron Jones and company in the secondary. So Edmonds, he has the workload of a true RB1. I think he's going to have the corresponding efficiency of a true RB1. You add it all up and treat the man as anyone's idea of an RB1.
As our good friend Eric Eager likes to say, it's not that running backs don't matter, it's that all running backs are good. Chase Edmonds is one of those. Ian, you are taking the Cardinals.
Except for Zeke.
And I have a feeling that it is because maybe you're not sure on Tua. However, for my prop in this game, I'm going to take Tua no interceptions at plus 125. Now notice, I said interceptions. You know why? Because if he's going to get rid of the ball and it's going to go to the other team, it's going to be a fumble. It might happen 2 or 3 times. But when he does throw the ball, I think it will be on the money. Plus 125 is a good number. All right, we are, 21 minutes away from kick. We'll be back with Ian's upside DFS plays, the helicopter play of the week, and then we'll close it out with the last 3 games of the slate.
If you've been listening to this show, you know my favorite thing are the player props. I'm the self-proclaimed prop king. It's not ironic. I fully believe it. I have a crown at home. I don't let anyone see it. But anyways, you want to enjoy player props as much as I do. I use this tool more than any other tool that we have. It's the player props tool. It's on PFF.com. You get it with a PFF Elite subscription. I use it a ton because these lines and prices, they come out, they change quickly. I might have some different ones that where I place my bets, and this allows me to change it, see where the edges are, decide which are my favorite, and then quickly go place my bet. Plus, if you get an Elite subscription, that means you get all of the other betting components that we have, which are Green Line for NFL and NCAA. Those are our betting dashboards that show you spread and total projections, and then our power ratings table, which allows you to look at strength of schedule to date, strength of schedule that's remaining, how many points we value each quarterback at, how many points better than an average team we value each team at, so you can look at the differences between teams. That's something that I like to use as a cursory first look at how these teams for upcoming matchups stack against one another. So go to PFF.com, get an Elite subscription. Hope you guys are ready for week 9. Let's get it.
You're trying to win your DFS tournament this week. That means you need a guy that some other people don't believe in, isn't that highly priced, and Ian Hartitz is here to deliver for you. His upside plays and his helicopter play of the week. I hope it's Antonio Gibson, but even if it's not, I'll still be your friend.
Got 5 guys I do like this week. So first one, cheating again. We usually try to stay away from top 5 highest priced guys, but I would just note that Derrick Henry fits that mold that we saw exactly from Dalvin Cook last week, where it's that high priced running back that everyone knows can go off, but we got guys that are just in a little bit better positions, namely Dalvin Cook himself this week, and people still riding that. So Derrick Henry, not exactly under the radar, but whenever he is even a little bit, at reduced projected ownership, we should be going the well there. So do not be afraid in GPPs to pivot off of Dalvin Cook to Derrick Henry. I think that Bears run defense is a little bit overrated as well. Guys that aren't priced as high, Laviska Shenault at 4,200. New quarterback under center coming off a bye week. Wouldn't be surprised at all if we see Laviska, really leaned on with his rushing ability. Guy who played Wildcat quarterback back in the day, looking at potential for double-digit combined carries and targets. Antonio Gibson at 5,800. I love stacking him with that Washington football team defense. Should be able to get a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones and company. And Gibson, also coming off a bye, could potentially take that workload step that we've been hoping for all season, haven't seen yet. Even if he doesn't get the increased workload, we're still looking at 12 to 15 carries and 3 to 5 targets against, a middling Giants defense. That will do. Also like Derek Carr at 5,700. Again, this Chargers-Raiders game, there should be plenty of points going from both sides of the field. I know Carr hasn't always given us this high-end upside in past years, but 2020, as we all find out, is a very new and different year, and Derek Carr has been balling out throughout most of it. My number one play of the week, though, is going to be Marquise Hollywood Brown. Seems like a prime squeaky wheel spot, sitting there at 6K. Look, I understand Lamar Jackson hasn't been great throwing through the air, but I think we're almost getting to the point where people just don't think they're going to be able to do anything through the air. And look, they will get yards, and when they do get yards, it's probably going to be through a number one receiver in terms of total targets. That's Marquise Brown. Came out this week on Twitter, wasn't happy, saying they need to use their soldiers more after only having 2 targets against the Steelers. Now facing a Colts defense that came on this show last week and called him fraudulent when I wanted to go the well with Kenny Galladay. Kenny Golladay got hurt, but we also saw Matthew Stafford throw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Marvin Jones had 2 scores. Marvin Hall over 100 yards. So at some point, we're going to see a boom performance from Marquise Brown. If this Ravens passing game wants to really get back on track, I think they're going to bring out the best version of themselves by getting Hollywood more involved. And you just look at the underlying metrics this year. I mean, look, he has 684 air yards. That barely trails Tyler Lockett for the 15th highest mark in the league. It's been more bust than boom so far, but I think he finds a way to turn that around this week. So Marquise Brown, Derek Carr, Laviska Shenault, Antonio Gibson, and don't be afraid to pivot to Derrick Henry.
Give Hollywood the damn ball. All right, we are, let's see, just 15 minutes from kick. We'll be back with Steelers-Cowboys, that rompus, an actual good game, New Orleans and Tampa Bay, and maybe we'll talk really briefly about Patriots and the so-called Jets. Just under 15 minutes to kick. Got to say, we just found out that Alex Trebek died. That was really, really sad. Love Jeopardy, love Alex Trebek. That guy was awesome. So, with that being said, that is sad news. We've got more sad news, which is the Dallas Cowboys playing in the 4 o'clock window. Again, it seems like we can't get rid of these freaking guys. They are the 29th ranked team. The only reason they're that high is because Dak Prescott played for a few games this season and was good. And then everyone else that they put in there has been absolutely terrible. No Ben DiNucci, unfortunately, in this game. Garrett Gilbert will be in there playing the Steelers, who are our 4th ranked team. They are 14.5-point favorites total at 44. I am not taking that huge favorite on the road. I will say, though, that I could see the Steelers scoring over 44 points by themselves.
Yeah, in honor of Alex Trebek, what is this? This game is garbage. You look at the Steelers are a team that, obviously are going to pepper the thing underneath. They're going to give the ball to James Conner, and they're going to play extremely good defense against an offensive line for Dallas as bad as.
What's
Garrett
Dallas's team total? 6.5?
It's like 13. It's got to be like 13.5 or something like that. I don't know. I liked Pittsburgh at minus 13.5, minus 14. At 14.5, it's tricky, but it is the only side you can be on. That's all I got to say about this game because I spent all my brain power on the.
Well, let's move on.
Yeah, it's been all about the Blitzburg defense for a number of weeks now, and now it's going up against a Garrett Gilbert-led Dallas Cowboys with no offensive line, no Zeke Elliott. Yeah. It's just going to be miserable. I don't see how they function. The other funny stat with this is that Dak Prescott hasn't played since week 5, and he has more passing yards than Ben Roethlisberger.
It's a really good.
That's all I got.
Oh man, firing Nuggets out with reckless abandon. OBJ heard that and immediately perked up.
No.
All right, Ian. A lot of Cowboys players that people invested a ton in drafts this season. Zeke, obviously, one of them. And it turns out that he's just not actually very good at football, but that when there's a good offense, a good running back can be good. So Zeke now, outside of your top 10 for this week, obviously Pittsburgh is very good, but like, what are you doing with some of these guys like Zeke and Cooper who you invested a ton in?
If you have anyone ranked like even close to these guys, I just think you got to go with the other option. We just don't know what this current state of the Cowboys offense is going to look like. And hopefully Gilbert, like the best case scenario for Gilbert should be to resemble a below average NFL offense, because what we've seen over the past few weeks has just been as close to trash, as you can possibly paint the picture. The fact they went into that Eagles game just hoping that like these reverses and wildcat packages would get the jobs done, I think tells you everything you need to know about the state of this offense. Then you throw in the reality that Zeke has his hamstring injury now. Just try to find someone else to play, please.
That is sage advice. I have only one prop here. I almost didn't even want to put it in because this game is whatever. But James Conner, over 20.5 receiving yards. Why? Because, well, the Dallas Cowboys can't cover anybody. They can't play defense. They're not very good. Over 20.5 receiving yards plus 105. He takes some screen, 40 yards or whatever. All right, on to a game that I'm looking forward to watching, and that is the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football on NBC. The Bucs, a 3.5-point favorite. 50.5 is the total. We obviously saw this game in Week 1 in New Orleans. The Saints were about 3.5, 4-point favorites in that game. This is a different Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Tom Brady is playing really, really well. Antonio Brown is playing in this game. Mike Thomas is playing in this game. So I'll start with you, Eric. What do you think?
We've seen this as high as 5.5 right around Tuesday. Now it's down to 3.5. I support this move. There are matchup issues, I think, for the Saints. But when you look at sort of the team in general, like the Saints' talent on defense is not all that far from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' talent on defense. The difference has been the result. But we know that results on defense are pretty unstable, not only season to season, but week to week. So you could get a decent effort here out of the Saints defense if this thing gets to 51.5, which it probably will, given it's a standalone game. You could probably go under on that. But right now I like the Saints getting Michael Thomas back and, being able, especially with weather the way that it's going to be in Tampa with over 20-mile-per-hour winds, I like this game to be a little closer, and I like the team, sort of with the playmakers in that short part of the field doing a better job than, Tampa Bay.
I'm really interested to see what impact Michael Thomas coming back has on this offense. Drew Brees has been sort of all over the place in terms of how well he's played this year, and I think what you're seeing is the result of a quarterback with no arm left anymore, essentially walking a razor's edge in terms of just a tiny margin for error, right? He doesn't have that anymore, so he needs to be supremely accurate, supremely well throwing the ball with anticipation, all those kinds of things. And I wonder how much of an impact an ultra-reliable receiver like Thomas has to that. If it does get the best out of Drew Brees, I think this could be absolutely spectacular as a game. If it doesn't, it's tough to see how the Saints actually live with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. People could see the Bucs blowing out the Saints. I'm not sure they could see the Saints blowing out the Buccaneers.
Even though it happened, like week 1, they had a multiple score lead.
Totally different game though, and I'll mention this about Tom Brady. He has 17 completions on throws 20-plus yards downfield. Leads the league in big-time throws. He's been spectacular. Drew Brees has 11 total attempts traveling 20-plus yards downfield. Like, if you looked at those two numbers and you go, how old is this guy? How old is this guy? You'd be like, Tom Brady's 25, looks like Patrick Mahomes. Drew Brees is 86, looks like Joe Biden. That ends up not being the case. They're both basically the same age. All right. This obviously has a ton of fantasy implication here. There's Mike Thomas coming back. There's Alvin Kamara, who's an all-world stud. He's obviously in your lineup. And then there's Antonio Brown. In the one game he played with Tom Brady last year, he ran 14 routes. He was targeted 8 times. It was the most that any receiver was targeted on a percentage basis in a game that season. Tom Brady loves this dude. He's welcomed into his home. They're eating avocados together, making music videos.
A lot of water.
Yeah, a lot of water. Ian, if he only gets 25, 30 snaps in this game, is that enough for him to be a legit wide receiver 1 or 2 for your fantasy team?
Look, something named Jaden Mickens led this Buccaneers offense in targets last week. And you really think, if people think that Antonio Brown is going to come out there and do anything other than command the wide receiver 1 role he's had his entire career, I don't think so. And I don't think the Saints can contain this guy. AB's got a lot to prove. The Buccaneers have a lot to prove by bringing this guy in. I think they're going to try to get him as involved as possible. Maybe we do get the 25 or 30 snaps. But to your point, George, we saw what he can do on a limited snap role anyway. So, yeah, get AB in fantasy football lineups of all shapes and sizes. Maybe in some of these the 4-team leagues people are in, they already have 4 top 15 wide receivers. But otherwise, this dude needs to be in there. Only other point I make on the Buccaneers is it's really tough to trust Ronald Jones at the moment. Bruce Arians benched him last week after that fumble off a deflected pass. Leonard Fournette, though, we have no LaShawn McCoy, no Keyshawn Vaughn. Leonard Fournette is a pass down back, and he just might be the early down back now too. So don't be afraid to treat Fournette and AB as top 20 options at their respective positions.
You have Michael Thomas as wide receiver number 8 this week. It's the only of our 4 rankers inside the top 10. Why is that?
Yeah, I thought 8 seemed a little bit low. I guess I'm on the not quite on the same page as the other rankers. But look, this guy, when he's out there, it's only Devontae Adams that we can probably expect to have a higher, per week target projection. So, if people were just worried about him being banged up, I get it. But Carlton Davis, credit for winning that week 1 matchup. He's a great cornerback. But Michael Thomas is still a great wide receiver. And I think we've kind of let some of the off the field or Twitter antics get in the way of that. Like, look, you can call him a Mr. Slant guy or whatever the hell the name is. But at the end of the day, the guy just set the NFL freaking record for receptions. That's a guy that you should be treating as a top 10 wide receiver in any fantasy format.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers having a headline anything to do with Leonard Fournette cracks me up, given how many wide receivers they have on their team. I am going to, I guess if push comes to shove, take the New Orleans Saints, so I don't feel good about it. The difference between these two teams from a power ranking perspective supports it. The matchups, as Eric alluded to, do not. Eric's rolling with me on the Saints. Sam is passing, and I'm not sure why. And then Ian, you're taking the Bucs, which I like as well. But I have something that I like even more, and that is my final prop for this week, and that is Thomas Brady. Sunday Night Football against Drew Brees, 2.5 passing touchdowns is plus 140. I don't like it. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I would give you another one, but I'm not sure you need any more because that's so beautiful. If you do, however, Alvin Kamara receptions, I love that one too. Go to PFF.com and check out the PFF props tool. It's the best thing that you will find on the internet today. And then, of course, there's a bunch of other stuff to help you get ready. We're 5 minutes to kick. If you are interested in Monday Night Football, we have a daily betting podcast that will come out tomorrow. We'll have some props live streams for you. And then other than that, I suggest wine or any other alcohol of your choice. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We'll be back next week at our usual time. Enjoy week 9, everybody, and stay safe.